Hello there, Ray here, and what you see behind me is the new best way to get wood in the game of Minecraft. With this new infinitely automatic giant fungus farm, it is possible to get wood without needing to AFK or use a player at all. All you have to do is build up this farm in your spawn chunks, and then whenever you need some logs or planks, you can just come on over and pick them up. No placing saplings whatsoever. And on a server, you don't even need to be online in order for this thing to run. Today guys, I'll be showing you off this amazing farm as well as explaining how it works. Make sure to go ahead and tell all your favorite Minecrafters about this new amazing wood source in the game. They can implement it into their 1.16 worlds. And if you haven't already, make sure to go ahead and subscribe because we have a lot of crazy farms like this and you surely don't want to miss out on them. Now this is the updated version of my fungus tree farm. I've showed you the same version a few weeks back. The main difference is that we went ahead and we implemented the new change to this most recent snapshot, which is the ability to take in all those really weird nether vegetation as well as the wart blocks that come off these things and put them into a composter. Now this change to the composter was actually a request of mine, so really awesome to see it. Essentially what you can do is now put any of the nether vegetation like the funguses, the roots, the sprouts, and even the vines into a composter, and it will provide you bone meal, which is really awesome. The vines as well as the sprouts will give you a 50% chance of increasing level, where the fungus items as well as roots will give you a 65% chance. And you can even put in the nether wart blocks as well as the warped wart blocks. These provide 85% chance of increasing the level of the composter. Once there is 7 levels to it, it will decompose and turn into 1 bone meal. With this amazing goal, we can go ahead and grow up one of these giant fungus trees, blow it up to pieces, then put those pieces into a composter, turn them into bone meal, then refeeding that bone meal into the system to grow up more giant fungus trees. Meaning this farm can be infinitely automatic and can continue on with no player needed. This uses a lot of cool tricks that I showed you guys over the last few snapshots. The first one being the giant fungus tree farm. I'll link it down below. A very nice setup here where we have the tree growing. And the way we actually get the fungus to grow these massive trees is using my automatic nether plant farm. We have a very small version here where we will bone meal a annealing block. So there is a dispenser pointing into this warped annealing block here. And every time it bone mills at one time, it has a chance of putting a wide variety of nether vegetation on top of it. Think of it similar to like bone milling a grass block and getting different flowers on top of it. We can get roots on top of it, we can get the sprouts, we can get fungus on it as well. And with a single block like this, there is about a 13% chance that you will get a fungus to grow on it. Once a fungus has grown out, we have a second dispenser, which is this top one here. And this one is bone milling whatever is right here. Now you can also get crimson fungus to be grown on top of even the warped annealing, but it will not actually grow, and the dispenser will not waste any bone meal. So it's only going to use bone meal on the crimson fungus, as you can see. And the bottom piece also doesn't waste bone meal either. It only uses 1 each time it grows 1 plant. And on average, it takes about 2.5 bone meal to grow one of the funguses up into a giant fungus. Once the fungus has grown, we have a little bit of automation occurring. We can actually detect when there is a block there. And what we do is we will pull the block off to the side where the rest of the tree will just grow up above us. You should be able to see that. There's a red one. Notice how it doesn't waste bone meal, but it is also unable to grow. There is your fungus. You can see it grew up and we have a nice tree up here. And the block that was here got pulled off to the side using some pistons, pulled over here to a little feed tape, and it's getting pushed up from over here right up through here. It's just going to push all the way up, and that way we can remove the stem blocks, and then we can continue on putting in more vegetation, hoping that we get more fungus. We also have a little clock here which is allowing us to remove any vegetation that is not the right type. So what we do is we bone meal the ground, we give it a little bit of time in case there is a fungus on it to grow up, and after a certain amount of time we go ahead and remove the floor. That way the item breaks off and it opens up room for more to grow. And this clock here is adjustable. With the giant fungus tree grown, we have the same TNT duper setup as before, where they are a bunch of dupers in a circle with a delay between them. It just goes around and ignites TNT, which falls at different locations, blowing it up. We try to blow it from the bottom upwards. That way we can clear away the bottom so that there's less blocks for items to land on top of. And then it just keeps going around blowing up the blocks, eventually blowing as much as it can reach. Items fall here into the water, get washed over here up against this, drop down, and continue moving over here. Then they get aligned against these cakes. And we have a couple item filters here which just take out the 2 items that we can't put into a composter. which is the warp stems as well as the shroom lights. The warp stems are just like any other wood source, and you can use them for whatever you normally would use wood for. You can make doors, slabs, you can make all sorts of wood things just like you normally would, including sticks and chests and all that sorts of good stuff. And that is the main purpose of the farm, is to give you tons of wood while never having to actually plant down any sapling. Then after it goes past the filters, it just goes into 2 composters, which are constantly filling up with the remainder items. With the giant warped fungus, it's just the warped blocks. If you happen to grow a crimson giant fungus tree, they can also produce the weeping vines. The weeping vines give you less compost, and they do take up spots for blocks that could have been the warp blocks, which give you more compost. Once everything is composted down, we just go ahead and pipe it over here into this dropper elevator, which takes it up to the initial input. So all this is just removing the bone meal over here into these 2 droppers. This one dropper goes into bone milling the top, and this dropper here goes into bone milling the bottom block. Now we also get quite a bit of vegetation. When the vegetation breaks off, you can see it actually breaks as item form, so we can actually collect this and reuse it. So we bring down the Nilium block, which brings it close enough to this hopper minecart to pick up any items that are on top of it. We have another hopper underneath of this, which is picking it up, putting it into this compost, and we're also reusing that, feeding that back up into here as bone meal, so we can reuse all that vegetation that doesn't quite make the cut. A really important part about this, to keep it infinitely automatic, we need to make sure the Nilium never dies. It's very similar to like grass, where if there's a block on top of it, while the grass block gets updated, it will die off, and then you'll be left with a normal netherrack block, which will not ever grow Nilium again. There's a couple ways to do this. What we have here is an instant retraction, so as soon as there's a block there, it will instantly retract it. Therefore, it won't ever be able to kill the block off. We can also do another thing just as a safety precaution. In case the system would be too slow, or if we want to slow it down a little bit, we can place in a Nilium block that is in a 3x3 area around the one that you're trying to convert over. So if I place like a Nilium block over here, right in here, so this is close enough, so if this would turn into another netherrack block, this bottom dispenser would bone mill it. That would automatically allow Nilium to spread from that block over into this block. A cool little trick I showed you guys to actually make a automatic Nilium block farm. You can find that video linked below as well. Now these giant fungus trees are notorious for trying to put branches way down low. And that's why we have these buttons here, to just prevent them from putting warp blocks here. Otherwise they can pretty much put warp blocks all along here, which gets kind of annoying. The block that we're using is a slow timer that gives enough time for the majority of the funguses to grow into giant fungus. Every once in a while there's a stubborn one that takes like 5 or 6 bone meal, and those ones will get broken off. You can see it also produces the crimson variations of many vegetation. Now the way that we detect that there is a block here is we have a comparator that is pointing into this area here. If there would be a block here, it's going to power this in here, which is going to extend. When it extends, it's going to put power over here into this repeater. Initially the power comes over here. It'll go through this Nilium block over here, and this is going to power the pistons, which are going to pull. Now normally it's moving the piston up and down so quickly it's unable to actually turn off these torches, but if there is a block in there, it'll keep it down long enough so that this is able to pull the block off and push it off to the side and push it up. Once the box goes up here, it's just capable of being blown up just like everything else that comes growing off of the farm. The TNT explosions themselves are just spaced out so that the other TNT won't blow up the items while they're still falling through the air. There's quite a bit of delay in between, but since it takes such a long time for the actual funguses to be produced down below, it really doesn't matter that much. Now TNT are dropping down, they're not being perfectly aligned. Sometimes they land up here, sometimes they land here, but for simplicity reasons we just kept it this way. We have a couple of them blowing up very, very low. We have an anvil here that was trying to allow the blast to go more downwards to get these lower ones. Since the majority of the blast occurs at the very bottom piece of the TNT, if there's a block below it, it really kind of stuns the amount of explosion power that it can do. And we had this one quite low, trying to remove the majority of the blocks that are in the water. That is the worst thing about this, is there's currently a bug in this version where the fungus trees can actually destroy water, including waterlogged blocks, and I wrote a bug report for it. You guys should go down in the description and upvote it, because it's pretty nasty to have like a waterlogged chest be completely destroyed just by a giant fungus tree. It also kind of hinders what we can do with the collection system down here. So for the time being, we just use some water that is kind of washing it all to one end. We have the water sources really far away from the center so they don't get destroyed. Then all the items are being pushed off to the edge. And the other TNTs are high enough up so they don't destroy the items in the water. You might also notice that we have some other collection systems off to the side. These are our old collection systems before they added the composting. So if you want to, you can use them to actually catalog all the different items that you get off of this farm. Includes the wart blocks, and then you can also get the stems. And there's also a small chance of getting weeping vines. We have the same kind of sorter system if you want to collect the vegetation. So the vegetation would end up down here. Got the sprouts, the roots and vines. We also got the funguses and the other variations. So you could decide to kind of keep all the different items off of it and then just have a different supply of bone meal. I would definitely recommend using my skeleton only farm, which I'll link below. It is a really simple farm that produces more bone meal than you know what to do with, and will easily be able to sustain this farm. Now, if you want to, you could also increase the TNT to also make it go up here. Once in a while you get a very tall one, but over time I'll just kind of fill up this area. We mostly concentrate on the average height, which is around here. Now Fax did a lot of testing to do with how much bone meal can you actually get off of an average giant fungus tree when it comes to the warped variations. They're actually really interesting information. It has to do with bone milling and percentages of getting different stuff. They did about 16,000 tests, and there was an 8.6% chance of getting a warped fungus to grow onto the Nelium. There's a 55% chance of it being a warped root, and a 22% chance of it being a sprout. Something interesting that Cheater Code told me is that the game only puts in the sprouts or the vines once it failed in to put in a fungus or a root. Meaning that even though the warped variations give you more variety of vegetation, it actually gives you a slightly higher chance of getting the fungus variation. That's why we're using it here in the farm. Now once a fungus has been grown up into a tree, on average you'll get about 54.8 wart blocks off of a tree. You get around 7.1 stems off of a tree and 2.3 shroom lights from each tree. And we did the math, we need about 82 wart blocks per tree in order to keep this self-sustained. So there's a lot of different ways you can supplement bone meal into this. I would recommend, like I said, my skeleton only bone farm, which is one of the easiest ways to get a lot of bone meal. Now this does mean you'd have to AFK the farm and convert bones into bone meal via crafting. So if you want to do more of an automated system, you can supplement it by using like your iron farm and the poppies turning it into bone meal and supplying this farm. Other things that also work is a very large cactus tower or like a melon farm. There's actually quite a few different ways you can get bone meal in the game. You can also do like an AFK fish mob farm or any wide variety of composting farms. I did a whole video going over these, which you can find linked below. The farm itself is quite simply designed. They're just a small TNT dupers up here at the top. There's a little collection area here. Most complicated thing is just this redstone here. And you really don't need to add the sorters in if you aren't going to use them. Just a simple 2 sorters here will get you the logs separated from the shroom lights. Everything else just gets reused back into the system. So it's really not that complicated. We are designing a more complicated version that is self-sustained without needing any other farms. You guys can look forward to that. This is definitely going to be the future for tree farms, as you won't need any bone meal, you won't even need any player AFKing. Just build this up in your spawn chunks and let it run. Since none of this has to be in a random ticked chunk, unlike natural tree growth, you don't even have to be AFKing in this chunk. Make sure to go ahead and share this video with other Minecrafters so they can learn about the futures of tree farms. And leave a like on the video. If you guys like to learn more about simple contraptions like this as well as complex ones, I have a great playlist which you can binge watch for hours over many cool farms like this. And if you'd like to build this up in your very own world, we will provide the world download down below. I'd like to thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye bye!